You have to be careful about making a weird show or watching a weird show.
Hello, this is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast, joined this week by, as I often am, by Giles Edwards, and as I sometimes am and was last week, coming back for a repeat, El Rob Hubbard.
Hello.
And we have a lot of topics to get through this week, so we're going to jump right into it. Let me bring up our topics. That should do it. And there they are. Are you guys seeing the spread?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I will take them off now. And we'll start with our first one, which is an image that Giles will... We've seen this image before. Giles will describe it, though.
All right, this is a black and white photograph, definitely a publicity photo for this 70-some-odd-year-old, I believe, Midwesterner with a tall shock of hair parted off to his left and a fairly neutral expression on his clean-shaven face, though possibly the most suppressed grin I've ever witnessed. He is wearing a black shirt and possibly a black blazer.
Okay. And I'd say he's a little scraggly looking there as opposed to clean-shaven, but, you know, he doesn't have a beard. He has some stubble. It is, of course, David Lynch. And why are we showing a picture of David Lynch? A little bit of David Lynch news drop. Did you have something to say, Giles?
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought you were gesticulating. A little bit of David Lynch news dropped recently. There's some details about what would have been his last project, a project that we know was codenamed Wisteria for a while, and its actual name appears to be Unrecorded Night. It was a long-form miniseries, kind of like Twin Peaks Season 3. Don't have any real details on the plot. We know that the screenplay was completed. We know that it was initially greenlit by Netflix and then paused when the pandemic hit. And then soon after COVID cleared up, David Lynch developed emphysema and was really was going to have to direct remotely. And it never got any further than the screenplay stage. One other thing we know, Jennifer Lynch, David's daughter and the original Eraserhead baby, was talking about it, and she said that the family really isn't interested in having somebody else direct Lynch's script, but they feel it should be seen some way, so that it appears they are considering just publishing it. It's a 550-page screenplay. And so people may be able to see it in some form and imagine the movie in their mind's eye. Anything else to add to this little piece of news, guys?
Regarding the interview with Peter Deming, where he mentions Unrecorded Night. He mentions several other projects that almost came to fruition, like Dream of the Bovine, which according to him got as far as casting, and several other projects, and also Mark Frost. I guess there's been interviews with Mark Frost over the past couple of days, talking about possibility, some possibility of Twin Peaks continuing in some form or other, kind of similar to what Jennifer Lynch said about possibly publishing the screenplay. So,
yeah, I can see Frost making some novels or stuff like that, which he's done before for Twin Peaks. So, yeah, so I mean that's a little bit of news, a little bit of hope. The article is on the film stage. It'll be linked on the blog, and there's a bunch of different interviews that you can just follow various links to see them. The interview with oh gosh, what was the guy's name? Roger, the cinematographer.
Peter Dimming.
Deming, yes. There's a long interview with him and an interview with Jennifer also. But that's that news about Unrecorded Night. Now on to this still, which Giles will endeavor to describe.
All right, this is a very close-up shot of a human eye. We can see the lashes up close. Most of the frame is the eye and surrounding lid area, and centered over the pupil of this eye, completely obscuring the iris, but showing the entire bit of the white stuff, whatever that's called, is I'm going to call it a sort of blue and separately orange toned targeting kind of lock-on kind of thing, with an XY axis in blue leading to angled delineations in a surrounding sphere that is on the exterior of the pupil, and going inward we have something similar in orange and then blue again. So whatever this is, it's measuring something very precisely, and that something is the massive eye that is pictured before us.
Probably going for rapid eye movements, I would guess. A lot of concentric circles there in that still. So this is something that's on VOD. It's called Dream Hacker. Okay. It's British, obviously from the accents, everybody's accent in the movie. Low budget, very clearly, and it's about a scientist who thinks she's found a way to influence others' dreams, and then she experiments on herself, likely with not very good results. And there is like an AI character that's in it, and it looks kind of, as I say, it's low budget. It's obviously low budget. They did have some production value. There's a big explosion in the trailer, so it's not micro budget, but low budget. There is one thing, however, I wanted to comment on this about anything that's about dreams. We will probably take a little bit of interest in, at least take note of it. This one, I have just, maybe it's just me, but I have just a little bit of problem with the way it is being announced, in that as they give their log line, it says, when neuroscientist, Jennifer Connelly, invents a device to explore and manipulate dreams. Now this, when I read it fast, made me think, oh, Jennifer Connelly is in this movie. No, not at all. They named the character Jennifer Connelly, which is kind of cheesy to me. Maybe it's just me, but...
No, that I had to look twice reading that log line as well. But I know, looking at the trailer, it doesn't look good, but it looks fun. It's kind of like your typical low budget C-list actors with a guest star to do a cameo to give it class. Marina Sirtis from Star Trek The Next Generation is that cameo. So
yeah, so it's usually a past their prime. Not that she's past her prime, but she's famous for something she did in the 90s, and now it's 2020. So yeah, did you watch the trailer, Giles, and have any
Yes,
thoughts?
I did. The explosion looked good, and I'd have to check the run time for the film, but the trailer suggested, however good or bad it may be, it's going to be moving fast, and I certainly always appreciate that.
That could be one with Giles's name written on it.
There is something in one of the log lines where it says, describing like how good the scientist character is. They have like her in one log line. They have her as the holder of 5 PhDs. So you know that it's going to be a really kick-ass invention.
Yeah, and that made me think that they could have put Dr. Jennifer Connelly, which would at least sort of indicated here's a character and not a famous actress.
Are they?
It might be more exciting if they actually were Jennifer Connelly.
I mean, I
inventing
certainly
a
will.
device.
Maybe that's the twist. It really is Jennifer. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, and she's not going to face off against the evil Dr. Brad Pitt, and her best friend is Senator Jennifer Lawrence and so forth. But all right, so that's going to be on VOD, probably not in theaters, maybe in Britain and somewhere in theaters, but that is the only thing that's new. Everything else that we have to talk about is physical media, and half of them are physical media releases from a single company because it is Deaf Crocodile Week again. So these have all been available previously, and we've reviewed actually 3 out of 4 of them, but they are just now landing in at retailers after being exclusives from Deaf Crocodile's site. So we're going to go through them again, and these are the ones that Robert is familiar with, a lot of them. So we're going to start out with this one. Giles, you want to describe this box cover?
Sure, we've got a relaxed, I'll say 70s style animation, the adjacent to what Ralph Bakshi was getting up to. This is a cosmic scene. It's a black background with a lot of sort of stylized stars assembled together in odd little lumps. There's a sort of inflated balloon style to the font for the title that is hovering around the top third of this promotional image here, and resting on that title is a pink astronaut or pink space suit with blue shoes and gloves going on. Bottom left we have looks like a woman in a skirt reclining on an amorphous blue surface. Bottom right is a very jolly green giant toned fellow, profile shot with a rather long tongue sticking out, and dominating the middle of the image is a sort of folded, not quite fist brown hand with fingernails, and it's resting on sort of a very spacey but reminiscent of a light bulb socket base. And it's holding this folded fist hand is holding a sort of garage or shipping container looking thing with a window, windshield wiper, and some external decorations. And if I'm not mistaken, it looks like a few things may have some cosmic bugs or gunk has splatted on the fist there.
Yeah, and it has a windshield wiper.
Yeah, well, in case it hits the front of this or whatever the positioning is.
Yeah, it's a pretty busy. It's somehow manages to be minimalist and extremely busy at the same time. This cover.
Yeah, it's a good, simple drawing style.
Well, this is the Cathedral of New Emotions, now on Blu-ray from Deaf Crocodile, and we fortunately have somebody with us who has seen Cathedral of New Emotions and can give us like a 5-minute description of it. El Rob, take it away.
So I reviewed this for the site I guess it went up a couple weeks ago. Cathedral of New Emotions. It's, I guess the easiest way to put it is that it was made in early 2000s, but it actually got its start from a short that was done in the early 70s by the director. And it's kind of like if you imagine like the movie Dark Star, but if it was done in Germany, and instead of like disaffected astronauts, you've got like the disaffected residents of a commune, of an early 1970s commune. And yeah, it's like Dark Star with a lot more sex and a lot more drugs.
Great.
Okay.
And so these, as I understand from your review, these characters are like hippie types in space. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah. So I guess if you want to kind of go for the metaphorical, it's also sort of probably a decent representation of communes like at the time, probably like late 60s or early 70s. I guess in Berlin. So I think it mentions that it's supposed to be a commune in Berlin, but uh, it, and it's kind of like with that sort of aesthetic. And as far as like the science fiction, it's kind of also like early 70s science fiction, kind of like the stories of Harlan Ellison or even Samuel Delaney's Dahlgren novel, where it's really soft, as you can see the storage container contained in the fist is their spaceship. And I guess in opening the windshield wiper, it does get utilized. So with that, you're not going to really expect any kind of like hard scientific accuracy. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like for candidate for being weird, it's definitely going to be like one of the more I don't want to say the word psychedelic, but I guess it does apply like with the color schemes and such. One of the more psychedelic um, animated films that you're probably going to come across, and one that's definitely not for children.
Mhm. Lots of sex.
Lots of sex.
Giles, any
It's kind of,
questions? Oh, go on.
I'm sorry. I think as I put it, it's kind of very reminiscent of like what you see on Adult Swim, that kind of material, except it's like way more, probably a little bit more smarter, and it's way more hornier. So
Any questions,
Oh,
Giles?
70s German of it. No, nothing in particular. I gave Rob's review a quick read before this. Looks neat. And it seems Crocodile has continued their trend of, well, what can we cram in here that will fit for the
Yeah,
actors and all that.
I think among the special features, the key one seems to me would be the original short from which this was expanded.
that it also features a documentary that was done about the director, Helmut Herbst. Let me see if I may have mangled the first name wrong.
Helmet.
No, Helmut Herbst, who's actually had a pretty good career as an animator and filmmaker. As a matter of fact, uh, the interview kind of does go into like this career, kind of like over his career, which is pretty fascinating. So, and it helps kind of give it like some context that you may not have just kind of going into it cold. Where
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the Cathedral of New Emotions, and let's move on to another one from Deaf Crocodile, which Giles may describe this.
All right, another animated promotional image for a feature film. Well, I'm going to call this a flesh pink background with a number of things happening on it. There's starting upper left, we've got a disembodied head of a bald, long-nosed gentleman. On the right, looks like a giant butterfly carrying a smaller entity. And going down a little further, two birds, one blue, one brown, tucked real close together. And then we get to the main thing. There's a lot of clutter. An insult to the animator there, but a lot of little things going on that I recognize having seen this. And they are perched on the shoulder of hunk, square-jawed, small pompadour, curly hair, sort of superhero-y, Clark Kent kind of hairstyle, man in a very power 80s kind of suit. And it's obviously very exciting what's going on, as emphasized by the fact that the title ends with an exclamation mark.
Yeah. And there's a sexy woman perched
Oh,
on.
that's true, yes. The main object perched above the gentleman's shoulder is a sexy woman with what I believe must technically be described as gams.
A micro skirt and gams, yes. Okay, and it is I Married a Strange Person from Bill Plympton. Deaf Crocodile has acquired a number of Plympton movies, and reissued them. Some of them maybe for the first time. This is a reissue for sure. This has been I Married a Strange Person has been out before, but this is a more deluxe version, I believe, with some extras, including two restored Plympton shorts, a new interview, and a commentary track that's brand new, although it doesn't feature Plympton. It's a couple of podcasters. And Giles, of course, wrote this up originally for our site. So, Giles, if you'd care to just describe the actual movie.
Yeah, this is Plympton playing with his craft as he does in every movie. Sets up an adequate plot and narrative through line to push the drawn image as far as he can. I'll read my plot description, which also explains why those two birds on the cover are so close together. As a mid-orgasm, two birds crash into Grant's satellite receiver, whose redirected beam gives him superpowers. And this fellow, once he discovers the superpowers, has to come to terms with them. And of course, all number of shady characters are after this fellow for his tremendous capabilities. So very playful take on, I guess, the superhero genre and military thriller kind of things. And I guess one thing I'll put further brief reason why I thought it was a apocryphal candidate. When the line, "Have you ever tried to tell a 50-ton tank to stop having sex?" makes perfect sense in context, it stands to reason the surrounding film is peculiar. So yeah, it's Bill Plympton going off on his various tangents to delightful effect.
Yeah, on the off chance people aren't familiar with Bill Plympton's work, I think you can find it easily, examples of it on YouTube. It's sort of a very surreal drawing style and lots of like things popping out of other things unexpectedly.
And a certain generation may remember he did MTV bumpers for a while. So if you recall some strange animations between music videos, those were probably Bill Plympton's.
Right. I haven't seen it, but Robert, have you seen it?
I have not seen this Plympton film as of yet. I think that they also released Mutant Aliens just shortly after that. Those two of his films I have not seen as of yet, and at some point I probably will pick these up. And I'm a Plympton fan. I have some of his later films, which I imagine will get released by Deaf Crocodile within the next few years. I believe, since they seem to be kind of making his work more widely available. So
yeah,
I'm intrigued.
I'll just say I doubt that Idiots and Angels will be released because of music rights issues. I don't know about any of the others, but that one in particular had a lot of what seemed like one-time favors of a friend. Tom Waits is on it, and just there's a huge number of bands, and it's a constant. The soundtrack on that there's no dialogue, so it's a constant soundtrack. It'd be very hard to get those rights all together, but maybe they'll do it. I don't know. Let's move on to the next from Deaf Crocodile, sticking with animation. We have discussed this a little bit before. Giles, you want to describe this rather simple box cover?
Yeah, this looks like a desert sunset. We can see the glowing orb disappearing over a small dune, and striding in front of it is a slender woman on very long stilts, carrying an appropriately long cane for further support, and she is holding on to something, possibly a bagfish. What do we got there? Oh, she's okay. It's a little loop with two tassels sticking out. And looking over this is I'll say a desert nomad looking older woman with her face covered against the sand and a cowl over her head. And I would guess she's probably in her spry 80s. The overall animation style is somewhat realistic, however, a bit stylized and softening of the human form. At least we can see in the profile of the face here, so that it's got maybe a storybook feel is what I'm getting from this picture here.
Yeah, I like that description, storybook style. And it is Gwen and the Book of Sand, which is a French animation that has been, it was recommended to us by a reader a long time ago before it was actually released by Deaf Crocodile or actually available in the US. I think that they were probably French and had seen it there. As far as I can tell, the plot line is a teenage girl and a 173-year-old nomad
Only enough by a century.
quest to save a kidnapped boy in the endless desert of the future, kind of a post-apocalyptic thing. Now, Robert, I don't know if you've got this yet, but I know you were planning to get it.
Actually, yeah, I picked it up. I actually just watched it the other day in preparation. When you mentioned that you're going to be talking about this, yeah, it's a post-apocalyptic tale. Um, Although it's very some of the details are kind of very abstract. Um, it reminded me a lot, if you've seen the film Fantastic Planet, which also made by a French animator. It's very you would kind of get reminded. It was very reminiscent of that, as well as Dune, but that's mainly because of the desert setting. A little bit more in the plot. What got is that, yeah, it's post-apocalyptic world, in which, as the main character, the older woman narrates, after the gods have left, and what remains is this object that, I guess during the periods of the full moon, drops objects of varying sizes on the surface. And it can be, and those objects are anything like very small normal size to oversized, there's like oversized forks, glasses and such, and they have to hide underground. They have to go underground for protection. Gwen is this orphaned girl that they find, and who comes into their tribe. Has this relationship with this teenage boy, who is the nephew of the main character. One night he is kidnapped by the appearance of the object, and so the older woman and Gwen go on a journey to find him.
All right, but before you go any further, let's cut to the chase. Is it weird?
Yes, it is definitely weird, and it's a straightforward story, but it doesn't really go where you expected. There's some really nice subversions of incidents that you expect to play out one way, and then it turns out that they play out entirely differently. As far as narrative, there is a solid narrative, but again, being abstract, there are some details that they don't really kind of spell out explicitly. And I think when you if you pick this up and you kind of go through the special features, there is an interview with the director. He talks about the genesis and development of the project. There are things there's information that is there, but there's nothing like in regular animated films where they kind of immediately point you to, well, this is what this is, and this is what this means. Some would call it refreshing. Others might call it irritating. But it's definitely weird, and it's like very, with the art style is gorgeous. When I first saw it, it reminded me of the works of the painter Henri Rousseau. I think there's a famous one of his famous paintings is called "The Sleeping Gypsy," with this like sleeping figure in the sand who's kind of being, and there's like a lion kind of like sniffing over. That's kind of like what the art style, where you can tell from that cover, but it's very much in the lines of that style of art. So I would say, no, if you're curious and you want to see animation, it's family and kid friendly, but it's not made made for kids. I guess if you can kind of understand that. I would say if you did play this for kids, they probably would get frustrated because there's just because of the story dynamics. But
you mean there are no wisecracking sidekicks in this one?
Sadly not.
Okay. What I was going to say about the cover looking at now is it looks like it's a blend of two different kind of art styles, because in the foreground it's pretty realistic, really. I mean, it's you can see the little wrinkles in the character's eye, and in the background it's very stylized and looking like a storybook. I don't know if that carries throughout the whole movie, those two kind of...
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It's kind of neat there. Any comments, Giles, before we move to the last one?
Yeah. Nope.
Okay. So those were 3 animated films from Deaf Crocodile, all pretty highly recommended. And then there's this one. I think it might be recommended, but not as highly as the rest, perhaps. But we will let Giles describe the cover first.
All right, well, there's a lot of, I'm going to say, green-skied weather event with, I'm going to say clouds, lightning, maybe some rain going on. The font suggests we are in for a creature feature. The said creature, I'm going to guess the titular character, is at, we see its head at a oddly 45-degree angle. A sort of average looking, young guy with not quite shoulder length shaggy hair, except there seems to be a metal band of some sort around his forehead, which suggests there might have been some degree of brain surgery he's undergone. Not terribly clear. In the bottom right, though, is a lineup of differently questionable looking individuals, especially the heavily mutton chopped fellow who's at the very bottom center in what looks like white face with black hair and a sinisterly happy, enthusiastic expression on his face, whereas of these 4 on the far right, the woman, close cropped hair, nice shirt, looks much more distressed than anything else. And these 4 individuals are in front of a tower, which looks like it has a chamber on top of it that is convenient for the harnessing of, ambient electrical storms. And bottom left, not quite human, but humanoid figure in green, getting some Aqua Demon feelings about this guy. Throwback kind of outfit, maybe frilly shirt, and tucked away just to the right of the angled head is a young boy who is glancing furtively off to the side, possibly hiding or protecting himself from something.
Okay, and the movie is Freckled Max and the Spooks from, I will likely mispronounce this Czech director's name, but I'll give it a go, Juraj Jacobisco. And again, this is one that El Rob has reviewed for us, so I'll just turn it over to him to very briefly describe what we have about 3 minutes, so very briefly.
Okay, yeah, really briefly. This is about an orphan boy, Max, who's with the traveling circus. He ditches the circus and falls in with this group, which is established as being Frankenstein's castle, in the midst of Dr. Frankenstein making his creation, who you see above the title there. Um, and also at the castle is Count Dracula,
Mhm.
the Wolfman,
Yep.
who's that mutton chop character, Igor, and and someone called the White Lady, who's supposed to be Elizabeth Bathory, but essentially it's kind of the adventures of Max with the characters at the castle, with the town adventures with the townspeople and such. And actually, this is a version. It actually started as a 7-episode miniseries based on a novel called Frankenstein's Aunt. So this went from I guess this is like a somewhat like 90-minute plus cut down of a 7-hour miniseries. I will say it holds together very well for, I guess, for being such an extreme cut down. I'd be curious to see what the whole miniseries is like. I like this.
Sure.
It's kind of it.
Go on.
I was going to say with 3 minutes, I may have to go on the other end because there's a lot more, but it's kind of falls in with the director, with a lot of the directors in Eastern Europe after their initial films during the Czech New Wave, and like in the mid '60s when the Soviets came in and government clamped down. Some of them weren't able to work, or if they were able to work, they had to do material that wasn't as controversial. So there's a lot of, I guess, what you call family fare. They did like a lot of fairy tales and such, and it seems like with Jacobescu, this kind of falls in under that. And there's more to that, but I may have to go on the other side of that.
Well, that's okay. Yes, we can go on the other side if there's more to say. I think that, yeah, it looks like a kid type movie.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not your typical. It's for what I would say typical kids fare. It's not. There are saccharine moments, but it's not saccharine. But it's not saccharine. There's a certain bodiness about it that you wouldn't expect to see, that you don't see like in what we consider family fare. And there are times when when it does sort of get serious. There's sort of an underlying sadness to some of the portions. So
Okay. Well, if there's more to say about it, we will say it on the other side. We're going to take a quick break. No time will pass for you, and we will be back soon. So, see you in a moment. And we're back. We had just been discussing the very last item of our Deaf Crocodile slate. That was right here, Freckled Max and the Spooks. We had gotten pretty much through it. I think Robert still had some more things he wanted to say about it. Can you see the poster again first?
yes,
Okay. Did you have some more you wanted to say about this?
yeah, just just a little more. Just because this was uh, well, I won't say it was a surprise, but I hadn't heard of it. I had seen one of Jacobuscu's earlier films, Birds, Orphans, and Fools, um, and kind of like so going into this, and sort of like the production history made it more intriguing. And then when I finally saw the film, uh, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. It's sort of like it does, like kind of Gwen. It kind of it can fall under family entertainment. I think this one is a little bit more child friendly. Uh, uh, and just in terms of the subject matter. And Jacob Bisco is a director. I guess it might be worth investigating once you see his history. Like I said, he was one of those directors who stayed, who remained there after the crackdown in 1968. But he fell into disfavor, so when he wasn't allowed to make films, and when he was allowed to make films, they were kind of things non-controversial, like documentaries and such. There's other directors, kind of like in similar circumstances. How we got to Freckled Max is that he did another miniseries in the early 80s called The Millennial Bee. I'm not about to try to pronounce the, in its original language, but it was also based, kind of an adaptation based on a novel, which was a success, and also got it's sort of like this reduced version that was run in theaters. And after that, he did a feature called The Feather Fairy, which is based on a Brothers Grimm tale and had Fellini's wife, Giulietta Messina, as the main character, and also kind of like in that realm of like fairy tales, they family friendly. And the success of that is what led him to do Frankenstein's Aunt, or that version as we know as Freckled Max. And it's sort of like was kind of a big production for the time. It's like an international cast. People that who like look at films here might recognize actress Vivica Lindfors, noted actress. People probably remember her from as Aunt Bedelia from Creepshow. Eddie Constantine from Alphaville. Ferdinand Main plays Dracula. He was also an earlier vampire in Polanski's Fearless Vampire Killers, and several other actors. If you're familiar with like films from Italy and other kind of Polish Czech films, you'll recognize some of those players, and some of their time is reduced because what I can determine is that some of those characters have a little bit more time in the mini series. So it's worth, and I guess after this, he kind of went back to making films and was fairly successful. I think he just passed in 2023, so maybe not even 2 years ago. So I think it's worth looking if you like. I guess for people who pick this up, the title is kind of like, yeah, but I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. And I think if they like this, they should kind of like try to look for some of his for more of his other work.
Yeah. One thing I was going to ask you is, given the very international cast, you have an American who worked in France, a Swede in there. I think there's a Brit or two in there. Was this actually made in Czechoslovakia, or did he leave Czechoslovakia and make it elsewhere?
No, this was made in Czechoslovakia. And we'll say with the special one of the special features on this is kind of like there's like a 45-minute documentary that's about him, which kind of goes more into about his career. There's also interviews with the director of photography and the assistant director. That's kind of more specific as to the actual production of the film. I think there's even like a small 5-minute piece that was done for like Czech television, kind of a behind the scenes thing. So I mean, this was a big for the time. It seems to be a fairly large production.
Yeah, I guess it comes in 1987, so it's not really the height of the Cold War anymore. I guess there's a little bit of a thaw, perestroika, and glasnost are on the horizon. So, all right, that's Freckled Max and the Spooks. Any thoughts about Freckled Max, Giles, before we move on?
Just briefly to defend my description, I don't think that they should make the titular, and I'm guessing main character, the smallest figure on the screen.
Well, Eddie Constantine might be the biggest star. So there goes Giles. We've driven him off. He's
Just a quick thing, like I said, mentioned the miniseries, the full miniseries, did get released on DVD, like in Germany, but it's kind of like out of print now. It's not on any streaming services. If you watch Freckled Max and you're thinking like, well, I wouldn't mind seeing like the whole thing. It's not on streaming services, but if you look in places like YouTube, you can find a Spanish language version. So I guess if you also know if you know Spanish, or can like do like Google Translate, and you can get a sense of what the full miniseries was like. There's a lot more Vivica Lindfors because again, based on the source material, she's actually supposed to be the main character in the story. And here they kind of give it to the kids and kind of split it up with the other characters, along with the actor who plays the monster Albert, German actor, but he kind of reminds me of like early Jason Segel. If you like Jason Segel, I said.
okay. Well, let's move on to 4 curious but ultimately less interesting releases. I think they're less interesting, but they all have a curious nature to them. Giles, would you care to describe this first one? We see
Sure.
a promotional photo.
Yeah, promotional photo for a box set. We see the box. We see 2 cases coming out of the box, and in front we have lined up 4 discs, which I presume go into the 2 cases, which go into the box. This is a red box with a sort of jagged, scary movie style font describing the contents. Main image is, I'm going to say, a young Japanese woman, longish hair going below the box picture. She has not just a wide open mouth, but a bit of an open face with 2 spikes coming out of her, one out of each eye, possibly horns. And in the middle, just above her lower jaw, we see a couple of Japanese figures, including another or perhaps the same Japanese woman. And to her right is, I think, just a generic middle-aged Japanese fellow. This is done in a sort of simple but expressive line drawing style. And crossed between these 2 figures on the face, below the spikes, above her lower jaw, seem to be a couple of crossed hands with nice shirt cuff, and I'm going to guess maybe these might be hands on arms that are in a suit of some sort.
Okay.
And motif being red with white and black are the 3 color tones to be found here, with some rising sun stuff. Oh, and of course, between the 2 eyes with the spikes coming out is a stylized, almost kabuki-looking figure of a fellow with receding hair and a sort of red stripe over his left eye.
Yeah, some very Japanese-looking artwork, which is appropriate because it is the J-Horror Rising box set. And these are some rarities from Arrow. I'm going to read off the titles, most of which we are unfamiliar with. Shikoku Isola, multiple personality girl. Inogami, St. John's wort, carved the slit mouth woman, Persona, and Noroi, the curse, which is the only one I think I've previously heard of. That was reviewed on our site. It's sort of a J-horror found footage thing. Deemed an interesting film, but not weird. Other titles I personally am unfamiliar with, but I'll see if any of you have any knowledge on the matter?
No.
Not really. I've heard of a couple of the titles, but I also I'm not a big J horror fan. So it's kind of a blind. So it's another blind spot for me. So
Okay, just wanted to point out this one's existence because we have previously reviewed Noroi, and that was at a reader's request. I did look briefly at the other titles. I looked at them on IMDb, and uh, it would be uncharitable, I think, to say that Arrow is scraping the bottom of the barrel of J horror here, but they are definitely going for some deeper cuts. Most of these unfamiliar, largely unfamiliar to most American audiences and people outside of Japan. I noticed that a lot of them were rated in the 4s and 5s on IMDb, which is not good at all. Average movie on IMDb gets about a 7 rating. So,
Then again, a lot of people might have walked into these with ill-advised preconceptions. I do notice, looking at the Arrow site, that this limited edition Blu-ray is sold out.
Okay, well,
So at least had that many people wanting it.
yes.
it's probably like the standard. So they're probably releasing the standard editions that's available. So
Oh.
that they're pushing now. So
Oh, that's right. This is the
I would
limited
think,
edition.
so,
Just the
yeah.
standard one is around the corner.
I think, allow me to check real quickly that the link we have says it is in stock at Amazon. So this is a standard edition, I suppose, not the limited edition. I was going to say of the titles I looked at, one of them looked like it might be somewhat promising. That was Inugami. And the word means something like dog spirit or dog god, mainly because that one was tagged with the tags surrealism and psychedelic and hallucination. So some possible weirdness in that one. One weird out of 8, not a great necessarily ratio, but Inugami may be an interesting one. Most of the reviews on IMDb were from people who had seen them at festivals like Fantasporto or maybe even Giles's favorite Fantasia. I do not know. It's the kind of movies that would have played Fantasia. Yeah. So that is the J Horror Rising box set. I think that's the second J Horror box set that Arrow has put out recently. I would not be shocked if they'd put out a good deal more than that, though. Moving on to a next one. Okay, this one's a little strange concept, but Giles, it's a very simple little image here to describe.
This is a Blu-ray box cover advertising, and I will just say this, Blu-ray 3D, so even I can't take full advantage of this. It's black background, and the other tones are red and white. Now, from this white, we've got some another eye with a very red iris. I'm going to guess from the eyelashes and the curvature above that this is probably a woman's eye. And from this woman's eye is somewhere between trickling and pouring a large droplet of blood, which we follow this down to the title of this 3D experience. And on the right-hand side is the full title, Blood Red Moon, and a brief blurb about the 3D Blu-ray release of this movie.
Yes, which is a Blood Red Moon and a Blood Red title, Messiah of Evil 3D. And the text, experience the haunting cult classic like never before with its first ever 3D Blu-ray release, immersing you in a nightmarish vision beyond the screen. And Giles, you can see it because it is, although it is offered in digital 3D. It is also offered in anaglyph 3D. So if you get those little glasses,
No.
you can watch it in 3D the way it was never intended to be seen. So the really odd thing about this is indeed a weird movie, and it's an Apocrypha candidate, and it's doing very well in our latest poll. I think it's third, people's third or fourth favorite movie that they would like to see added to the Apocrypha. They didn't mean the 3D version though, because it was never intended to be seen in 3D. This is from a company called iPop, who are taking a bunch of public domain movies and transferring them into 3D for
Yeah.
no particular reason. Although a lot of them, are old like black and white Roger Corman movies, like Creature from the Haunted Sea and things that you think, yeah, they would have made them in 3D if it wasn't too expensive, probably.
Yeah. Well, I got. Ooh, wow! They have the Marx Brothers classic, The Coconuts, in 3D.
I think like Night of the Living Dead, the Romero version, Frankenstein's Daughter, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Yeah, I took a look at this, and it's probably the public domain version. There is, I guess there is. I don't want to say legitimate, but there is a better release of Messiah of Evil, I guess, remastered, and I believe on the public domain version, there's a very notorious title song that's not in the remastered. I think it wasn't the directors didn't want it there, but they got overruled. Other than that, it's a really interesting movie. Made by people who would do like more famous work. I guess this is Willard Hayek, who's known for co-writing with his wife Gloria Katz, who also co-wrote this for American Graffiti, Howard the Duck, and so I would say it's worth seeing. If you're not a 3D fan, I probably recommend you can find a better version out there. But hey, you know,
I have kind of a mixed feeling about these guys just taking a bunch of movies that weren't intended to be 3D and turning them into 3D. On the one hand, it's kind of cool that they can do that with the technology, and it seems like kind of a fun project. But like I say, on the other hand, it's not the way the movies were intended to be seen. It's a gimmick. I don't know if it would be. I mean, I guess I would check them out. I don't think I'd specifically buy one of these. I don't know. Are there really big 3D fans? Maybe there are people that just want everything in 3D. I don't know. Like I say, I have mixed feelings about it, but it's kind of cool. So more power to the guys. They're just doing.
yeah.
Yeah, I regard this as, I mean, yeah, this being public domain stuff, more, yeah, do what you want with that. Any remixes, rehashes, they're not advertising this as anything, it seems they're making it very clear what they're doing. So it's not like they're, obscuring the fact that they're, taking the possibly lesser public, prints and the like. So I don't see, no one's getting hurt here. As for reimagining people's films in 3 dimensions, if these are public domain, then my copyright senses are not tingling here, and I don't worry about Willard Hike or Gloria Katz. Their reputation is not going to be hurt by this kind of noodling around.
Yeah.
Not by this. I think it was more hurt by Howard the Duck than.
Well, that was possibly almost a mortal wound there.
Like I say also though, I mean, I think like with the old Roger Corman movies that were cheesy, it makes sense. Messiah of Evil, on the other hand, is a movie that has a much stronger reputation and is kind of a surreal art house movie that depends a lot on its atmosphere for its impact. And so it's hard to believe that they're not kind of hurting, or it's a less effective presentation, I would guess, not having seen it. I don't know if I would, like I said, if somebody had it on TV and had a pair of glasses, I'd watch it.
I've only seen one movie in 3D, and it was a post-fact one, but it was a big budget. The only time I ever saw Terminator 2 was its 3D release was playing at Fantasia, and I happened to have a free afternoon to check it out. So yeah, it was neat, but the technology is kind of pointless, I'd say. But okay, this isn't for me, and they're not making me buy it.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, it's a curiosity. iPop 3D is the name of the company. You can probably just search them on Google, or we will have a link on the blog to them. But let's move on to another very elaborate release of a movie that's sort of weird adjacent, I would say. But Giles, can you possibly describe this?
I think so. Is that Steelbook? That looks like an
Steelbook.
flat Steelbook case. Anyway, this picture takes up the entire screen, as it were, made up of this Steelbook. When you open it at the spine and lay it flat in front of you, looks like one of those. Looks like there's a tray there, one of those kinds of trays you might find in a morgue. And on this tray, strapped rather tightly, though, as we see from the expression further to the right, perhaps not tightly enough, is the lower spine, then into ribs and withered, almost meatless arm, clutched skeletal hand, and with barely any face there, certainly no nose, but a wash of glorious big hair, woman's hair. We see the screaming face of this thing that can't possibly actually be alive, considering it has no lower half of its body, virtually no flesh, and most of its face is gone. Brilliant blue eyes, though, very striking.
And also a pink tongue. I mean, the
Yes.
flesh all rotted off, but the tongue stayed perfect.
I guess it's bottom to top and then inward of the face. So tongue and eyes will probably be the last to grow lusterless.
Yeah. Okay, so this is Return of the Living Dead, Steelbook, 3-disc, extremely lavish presentation. There's a 4K UHD copy of the film. There is a regular Blu-ray copy of the film. And then there is a Blu-ray with a bunch of extras, plus a work print of the film, and more extras scattered everywhere throughout all 3 discs. Return of the Living Dead, of course, a Dan O'Bannon horror comedy, pretty much the pioneer of the gory horror comedy, I would say. Set right here in Louisville, Kentucky, although, as I mentioned previously in a episode, not filmed here at all. There's one establishing shot here. But hey, it's Louisville's claim to fame in horror, other than William Girdler. So there we go. Guys, any thoughts on this? Like I said, I think it's weird adjacent. Cult film fans really know this movie. So
I'm intrigued by in the bonus content description. It says "Party Time," the music of the Return of the Living Dead. I guess that's a little documentary or something, because I always like it when movies come out with little CDs to play as well, but I'm not really, I think that's unfortunately not the case. But yeah, that said, this is as big a treatment as pretty much any movie could hope for, and even better than most, it's Steelbook.
Yeah, it's a great little film. I remember going to see this when it first got released, and it's kind of a perennial favorite. This release edition is probably about as packed out as you're going to get until we go to, like, say 10K or 12K. This has, like, I think, ports almost everything over from any previous release. There's like 4 or 5 commentaries, featurettes, there's a little bit on the director Dan O'Bannon, which is useful. But I mean, if you don't have this yet, and you've got and you've got 4K, or even if you don't have 4K, if you don't have this yet, this is probably the one to pick up.
Yeah, it's from Shout Factory under the Scream Factory label, and
Mm.
it is I haven't seen any movie that's gotten a better treatment than this. I mean, three discs, three versions, UHD, Steelbook, so
Well, the
many
Evil Dead,
special features.
probably the Evil Dead films is
Yeah,
there's,
yeah. The horror people do take good care of their
mm.
creative output.
So yeah, that one, if you like this movie and you have the 4K UHD player, this is something to get. So from the really, really good release to the really, really questionable release, I think, but we'll see. This is a Blu-ray cover that I guess Giles, a very marginal interest to us that Giles can describe.
I will do my darndest. This is a collection of 4 films for one individual, and as such, they've divided the main part of the cover into 4 triangles forming a square. And the top, we've got passionate woman with man kissing, and a wedding cake, and possibly the same guy kind of leading awkwardly to the left, which of course draws the eye to the right hand triangle, where we see mysterious black and white photo still looking woman next to square jawed masculine guy on the left. He's in color for some reason while she isn't. And we careen down to the bottom triangle. And this, we have an array of 5 smiling characters, all looking very wholesome, happy, and all that good stuff. I think I see some famous faces in there beyond the person for whom this collection has been devised. And it looks like they're spilling out of a gap in the poster, which I imagine this is truncated from. And on the left, we have the woman again, this time looking a bit more addled, I'd say. And she is addled at some direction, and probably not incidentally is a sheepish looking guy in is that a cardigan? I think he's wearing a button up cardigan and a necktie, possibly wondering how he can remove himself from this particular scenario he's in.
Okay, and it is a Blu-ray disc called the Elizabeth Taylor Collection, and it collects 4 movies, 3 of which are not particularly of interest to us: Father of the Bride, The Last Time I Saw Paris, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Although I will say that Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf may be the best movie of these 4. But the one we're interested in is Reflections in a Golden Eye, the one where, was it John Huston directed, and with Elizabeth Taylor and Marlon Brando, one of Elizabeth Taylor's weirder movies. It's all shot in a golden hue, and it has deals with some, let's see, what year was it? It was 1967, and it deals heavily with homosexuality, which was still pretty taboo in a mainstream Hollywood movie at that time. It's pretty much an experimental type movie that got released through Hollywood, somehow slipped through the cracks and got released, and because of the big names attached, and didn't do too well, but now I think people view it more favorably. The description does not say how many discs this is. I would assume each movie comes on its own disc, but who knows?
I'd wager 1. This is the Warner Brothers Archive collection, and those they typically cram. So if this were 4, I would be somewhat surprised. And these will be perfectly presentable on a DVD or Blu-ray player, but by no means, there's like, hey, we have these. Here you go. We did some perfunctory scanning of the,
Yes,
possibly
Warner.
one, possibly 2 disc. Apparently, like this release has, I guess they do port like special features that came on the original releases. So being Blu-ray, it possibly 2 discs. I don't know. I imagine maybe everything could fit on one, but yeah.
I don't think you can fit 4 movies on one Blu-ray disc,
Oh,
but
you can.
Oh yeah.
if anybody can do it, Warner Archive can do it.
And looking at this for Reflections in a Golden Eye, the previous releases came in the, I guess with the golden tone, with everything awash in the golden tone. And I think with the previous Blu-ray release, they started including that the golden version and also the full color version, which got, I guess it played theatrically in the golden version for about a week, and then the studio recalled it, and then they issued out prints in full color. So you do have the choice of both versions on. So with this release, it's not uninteresting. Um, it's based on a novel by Carson McCullers, who's probably forgotten nowadays. I think she'd be remembered for the play Member of the Wedding, but she wrote quite a bit, and I guess it would fall under the heading of like Southern Gothic, of which Reflections in a Golden Eye certainly is. Um, I guess kind of like the other equivalent would have been like adaptations of like Tennessee Williams's work at the time towards the middle to late 60s, early 70s. Said the adaptations started kind of get a little bit more wilder. Like the versions that were done in the late 50s, they did have to kind of adhere to the production code. So some of the more racier elements kind of got submerged. And I think starting with Reflections in the Golden Eye, so more that they started being more, I guess, faithful for lack of a better word. So
I did what this set made me think of. First off, I would probably, if I was interested, I would probably buy Reflections in a Golden Eye on itself. The only I'm not interested in the 2 comedies there, but Virginia Woolf might be cool to have. But I was also thinking if I was going to make a Elizabeth Taylor set, I would go with her weird period, the weird Elizabeth Taylor set. I would go with Suddenly Last Summer, Reflections in a Golden Eye, Boom, and Identikit. All 4 together. Now that
yeah,
would be a set I'd buy.
and Secret Ceremony.
Yeah, there are other weird movies that she did. She went through a period where she took some very odd roles in some very odd projects. In the late 60s, starting, although Suddenly Last Summer was as early as 1959. So
That's, I think it would still qualify that. And again, that would be nice to have like all of those in one box set, although I think they're kind of scattered. I know Identikit wound up in the Severin, the House of Psychotic Women, the first volume set. Um, Secret Ceremony, which is with Mia Farrow and Robert Mitchum, uh, Joseph Losey film, also very odd. I think that's Kino Lorber, and a couple of films that she did with Richard Burton. Uh, Hammersmith is Out and Dr. Faustus, I believe. Uh, I don't think I don't know if anybody would call them good. They're definitely weird. And Boom, of course. So
I just think it's cool that Elizabeth Taylor, of all people, had a weird phase in her career. I mean, and it's something I just really discovered, within the past couple of years that she went through this phase with the the reissuing of Identikit, and Pete
well, starting to kind of be
Urbanich finding
rediscovered.
Yeah.
Because most, like I said, like most of the films in that period just got didn't get really didn't get good reviews, weren't critically respected, and bad box office. And I think like in the last 5 years, so they kind of started to kind of be reevaluated. So yeah.
All right. Well, we are almost out of time. Giles, any thoughts about Elizabeth Taylor before we?
Oh, well, I was just seeing what she's been in, and yes, going all back to Courage of Lassie in '46. She's been in a lot of different kinds of things. So even a Lassie movie.
Yeah. Oh, she was a huge star at the time.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, that should do it for this episode of Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast. I personally will be off next week, but Giles and El Rob should be back with Penguin Pete Turpovich.
On the bun.
And I don't know what we'll discuss, but what you guys will discuss, but we'll see later. All right, thanks everybody for listening to the end. Watch Pete Turpovich's new 10 Weird Things series. It's being revived with starting with Nothing But Trouble. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers.
Weird. Yeah, I guess that is the word for it. Weird.